She's running out of time, and she's feeling like you're really on her case to get things done. And it can be a simple thing as just blinking and looking at you to tell you a yes or a no. For her, that's her struggle every day, all day long. Trying to tell you what her choices are as far as what she'd like to wear. Sometimes that can take a half hour, no problem. What we found that's a little bit more efficient is she chooses for a week at a time, goes through all of her outfits in a yes or no fashion and tells you first all of her shirts, and then we sort of, Erin generally mixes and matches up some coordinating outfits that we've learned over time. She kind of likes piece together, and then go through and do the approval. They're little tricks that we've had to develop just because apraxia can be so frustrating, not only for her, for everybody else. With her little sister, it can be especially frustrating simply because she's 4 and she wants to talk to her sister, and it's not always going to work out the way she wants it to. One good story that we have is when Olivia was probably 2, she wanted to do something with Joe. I don't remember what the activity was. And we have the added challenge that we live in a bilingual home, and so Joe has always understood both French and English. But for a long time, Olivia only spoke in French. She's learned over time that when we have people come into our house who don't speak French, she generally asks right away, do you speak French or do you speak English? And then she can switch to the language for that person. But when she was a little bit younger, it was a little bit trickier for her, which kind of put it on a little bit more of an even pairing with her sister. However, she wanted to play with her sister, and we said, you have to ask her. You can't just go tell her what you want to do. She's your sister. You have to ask her permission, ask her what she wants to do. So she went into her room and said, Joe, would you like to play with me? Yeah? Okay. She wants to play with me. And we said, no. She didn't say yes. You said yes. Go and get her yes and no. So she went, and she took her yes and no cards and walked up to Joe and said, Joe, will you play with me? Yeah? Okay. And came back. And we said, no, Joe didn't pick. You didn't give her time. You didn't wait. She did not tell you what she wanted. She needs to actually reach out and tell you the answer. She took the yes and no, went back, picked up her hand, touched the yes and said, yeah, okay, she wants to play. We said, no. Meanwhile, Joe was giving her this exact same look. Are you kidding me? Hello, I'm not saying yes, I want to play with you, and right now I don't even want to see you anymore. It's a challenge for them, and we work really hard on making things work between them so that there's as much respect as possible. Joe, being neurotypical at times, quite regularly would like to bug her sister, and sometimes we do have to ask her to not say the same thing on her communication devices over and over. So for example, she'll say, good night, Olivia, at 10 o'clock in the morning. And Olivia will be going, Joe, that's not funny. That's not funny, Joe. Now, we've had quite a number of technical glitches with our presentation. And one of the major ones being that we had quite a few videos recorded, got here, and our plan was that while we were on our 4-hour flight over here, we would just put them on the laptop and plug them in the right spot and we'd be good to go. However, the cords that we had, none of them would attach to any of our laptops, and we have 4 laptops. So it became an issue. We landed, we said, not a big deal, we'll go to Best Buy, we'll just buy another cable and we're good. Best Buy said they don't have that cable, and it isn't made for that particular video camera. All that to say that we have an awesome video here of family friends of ours. And this particular sock puppet is one of a kind. You buy them at a number of places. For example, our local farmers market. And some friends of ours went to buy a birthday gift for Joe. Now, Joe being 11, her favorite birthday gifts are movies or music, clothes, anything that has to do with Jonas Brothers. So she opens this bag with Pirtle, and this is Pirtle. Our friends were over, Jana and Mark, and Jana's become very close. They're both very close to our family, but Mark has never really fully understood how Joe can communicate. He gets the communication devices, and when she talks to him with her device, he's good. But he's never understood how sometimes at home, she doesn't need her communication device. We fully get what she's saying. Well, Joe opens up the bag, and we help her to pull out Pirtle. And the look on her face clearly said, words that I won't say right now, that she was really not impressed with Pirtle. Of course, we started to howl, and it really was a fantastic eye-opening moment for Mark. He got home that night and said to Janet, you know, I get it. I really saw on her face what she was saying. Of course, he said to his wife at that point what it was, and again, I won't say, yeah. She clearly did not get why somebody would give her a sock puppet. We're strong believers in age appropriate. She's 11. She does things 11-year-olds do. Not everybody in our family and friend circle believes the same thing. It's a perfect example. Now, when Joe was quite small, the nature of Rett syndrome is you develop normally. So a child with Rett syndrome has a mutation on their X chromosome. So a boy with just one X, one Y generally doesn't survive to a year. A girl has two X's, and so your body is taking some information from your good X, some information from your bad X. But it generally doesn't start to access that information till you're about a year to 2 years old. So in Joe's case, she developed totally normally. She talked like you wouldn't believe. She was very, very social. She, stood in her exercise saucer and played with her toys and did all the things your regular kids did. At a year of age, all of a sudden she didn't want to stand anymore. Went to the pediatrician, said, she's not standing, and got the old, oh, you're just a paranoid mom. Don't worry about it. Come back in 3 months. She'll be walking. It's not a problem. And I went home and thought, no, I don't like that answer. So made appointments to see a couple different pediatricians, get second, third, fourth opinion. Second opinion, I went to see a pediatrician who I thought there'd be a good link because his son played high school basketball with my husband. I thought, this should be good. He'll take me seriously. Didn't bring my husband with me, thinking, no big deal. Go there, Joanne and I explain the whole situation, and he says, point blank, I was going to give you the usual pediatrician blurb that really, it's just a motherhood thing, you're worrying, it's not a big deal, come back and it'll be okay. But I think you're right. I think there is something. She could possibly have a brain tumor. She could have a cyst pushing on her spine. We'll get a CAT scan done, and we'll give you the information. Of course, I leave there. By the time I hit the parking lot, I'm bawling. Get in the car, cry for half an hour, drive home, explain this to my husband, and he says, well, call back. When are we going to have this appointment? We call back, and they say, oh, there's like a 6-month waiting list. We'll let you know when your appointment comes up. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to another doctor by myself. My husband comes with me, and I admit, I was prejudiced. I picked this pediatrician, A, because she was a woman, B, because she worked out of the university hospital. So I thought, maybe she'll have some connections, maybe she'll have seen something. She's got to have some idea. We spent 2.5 hours with her. At the end of that 2.5 hours, she said, you're absolutely right. There is something. I can see that her muscle tone is decreasing. I'm not sure that a CAT scan is right. I think we need to just go straight to an MRI. That'll give us a full picture. We'll have a really good idea, and then we'll go from there. Okay. We had an MRI within a week. The MRI didn't show anything that could possibly cause any muscle weakness. This was the Friday before Christmas. By the 2 weeks later, the Friday right after New Year's, we had an EMG done. No muscular dystrophy, no signs of any muscle issues. We were starting in rehab, physio at the rehab hospital in our neighborhood. Then we proceeded through genetics, neurology, all of the specialists you can possibly see. There was nothing other than muscle weakness. There was no other signs. She was still talking. She was doing all of these things. At a year and a half, we drove down to Calgary, about 2.5, 3 hours drive. Saw a different neurologist there. Same thing. Not really sure what the scoop is. By the time her second birthday approached, we started to see signs of seizures in her sleep. And at that point, we thought, okay, what's going on? Talked to our pediatrician. She says, okay, well, that gets you in to see a different neurologist. We'll see what he says. He comes in, now she's 2 years, 2 months approximately, and says, well, and at that point, she had just stopped using her hands. So she would sit, and rather than be able to pick up her toys, she'd kind of look at her toys, but she couldn't get her hands to work. And she's starting to have these seizures, again, low muscle tone. And she had just stopped talking right before her second birthday. And he said, well, judging by those things, I would say she probably has Rett syndrome. being a teacher, my husband and I both looked at each other and thought, well, she doesn't have Tourette's. Like, we have a pretty good idea what Tourette's is. And he said, no, Rett syndrome. And he wrote it down, R-E-T-T. Go and research it. When she's about 4 or 5, I'll confirm the diagnosis. Kind of thought, I don't like that idea very much. So went and did a bunch of research, contacted specialists, managed to get part of a study being done out of McGill, had the tests all done, confirmed, yes, she does have Rett syndrome. But by this point, she's now 2.5, and she's stopped talking. She's stopped using her hands. And we're thinking, well, what are we going to do? Like, we have to find a way for her to be able to still do all of what she needs to do. She's insanely frustrated and screaming all the time because she went from being a regular kid who could talk, who could do things with her hands, who participated fully in all the things we did socially as a family and in our community, and within a year had lost all of those skills and didn't know what to do. We'd get in a car and she'd start to yell. Whether it was she was afraid she'd fall asleep and have a seizure, whether it was she was getting motion sickness, we have no way of knowing. These were just the only way she could get her body to react. So at that point, we saw a number of SLPs. We kind of had quite a challenge to find people who were more communication-based as opposed to speech. Because, of course, with the apraxia, she's not going to be able to blow on a feather. She's not going to be able to make a P sound or a T sound just because she wants to. We needed to find a different way for her to communicate. Started taking pictures. Bought digital camera, print off my own pictures, bought my own laminator, had a picture of a bowl, had a picture of a cup, had a picture of the bathroom. And for her, it was like the light was back on. She could, and for the longest time, for probably the first month or two, I would take her hand and touch and say, okay, we're going to the bathroom now, and take her to the washroom, and we'd go through. Of course, when we first started, she wasn't trained. She was 2.5 years old. By the time she was 3, she could touch and indicate, I need to go to the bathroom. We then worked our way up to what used to be sold at Radio Shack back in the day. Now they generally sell them still at Source by Circuit City and are just talking picture frames, but it gives a voice to the picture symbol. We had a friend of ours who participated in a survivor pool, won $150 and said, you know what, buy something for Joe. So I went, they were on sale for $15, bought 10, good. We had them everywhere. We had ones in the bathroom that said, I need to sit longer, I'm all done now. We had them everywhere. Then I started to grow and to know and learn about bridges and the different equipment that we could buy in different areas. And in Edmonton, we have a place called the ICANN Center. And through there, I took a number of courses, found ways to increase Joe's ability to communicate. For her, it was an opening. It was a way to be able to be part of society again. At that age, it was maybe not as obvious in a lot of situations because she was still just a 3-year-old girl. So if her body didn't quite work right, other 3-year-old kids' bodies didn't necessarily work right either. If she needed to spend half an hour in the bathroom, lots of 3-year-old kids spend half an hour in the bathroom. You can see here, she was 3 making cookies, and she's got her step-by-step, she's got a 1-step, she's got a tech talk. So by the time she was about 4, she had a tech talk with 8 picture ability. We had a 1-step, the red one, or step-by-step, pardon me, right here, stayed on the table. And anytime Joe came to the table, she would say, well, I'm kind of hungry. Anybody else hungry? She'd hit it again. I'm not getting any thinner over here. I'd really like to eat now. And she'd go on and on through her whole spiel. Of course, my blood pressure would rise, but that's the reality. That's what regular kids do when they sit at the table. They go, okay, is supper ready? I'm hungry. Can you pass me something to eat? I'm hungry. And they keep going and going and going until they get food. We've now since worked out to a gazillion different types of easy ways for Joe to communicate. From putting stickies on the armrests of her wheelchair, basic yes and no.
Those ones are for Olivia. They're in French. And they're actually, on the front side is in English, and on the back side is in French for O, because Olivia would then turn it And Jo couldn't see what she was asking her, so we had to double laminate them. And Olivia actually now has a magnet that Jo bought her at Staples that she keeps on the fridge with just her yes and no's. She wrote the name on her magnet. As we have new staff in, she takes them right to the fridge and says, "Those are mine, don't you touch them." And then anytime she wants to go and ask Jo a question, she grabs her